93.9 BF Rochester. The sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950 WGR Rochester. An Odyssey sports station. WROC AM WBEE HD2 Rochester and everywhere you go at WGR Rochester. The sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950 WGR Rochester. An Odyssey sports station. Welcome into the sports bar with Gene Battaglia, where the voice of the Rochester fan is heard. Pull up a stool and join us at 866-4326. This is WGR Rochester, and the sports bar with Gene Battaglia is on now.
2 hours of sports talk excellence here in the Flower City from the High Fall Studios. My name is Gene Battaglia. Glad to be with you on this Tuesday afternoon. Our phone number, 866-4326. Of course, that is area code 585. For everybody watching on YouTube, I'm wearing the warm sweater today as we say hello on camera to our fine producer. Terrible take, Timmy, wearing his Bonnie Pride. And I'd just like to point out that Fordham split with Bonaventure this year, and that Bonaventure, terrible season for you. But, it's not over quite yet, for sure. Here's what's happening today, and this is the fun part of doing a radio show, right? You never know what to expect, and we were kind of expecting, news coming out of Indianapolis today. We just didn't know the timing of it, and things have been moved up. So coming up at the bottom of this hour, well, for the first time since that press conference that didn't go quite so well, I think January 21st being the date, Brandon Beane will speak, the Buffalo Bills general manager from the Combine, and I think we can still call him new head coach. New head coach Joe Brady will also be there. Sal Capaccio is out in Indianapolis, so he's going to be kind of anchoring as if you're maybe tuning in for the first time this week, maybe in a few days. It's kind of a fresh coat of paint here, as I would say here on our station here. Kind of taking the persona of the sports powerhouse of Western New York, WGR. This is WGR Rochester, and each afternoon we'll be here in the sports bar talking local sports with you. But if it's the Buffalo Bills, we're going to be the one station that is going to go to Indianapolis, and that will be coming up here, bottom of this hour. Hour number 2, head coach Michael Leone of the Rochester Americans, where this is a weird schedule for this team. 6 games, 4 of the 6 are against Laval. This isn't playoff time, but you get Laval last Friday, you lose. Tomorrow night they're in Cleveland. That's where the team is headed. So we'll talk to Michael Leone, presumably on a bus. And then after that, it's Syracuse on Sunday, 4 o'clock Sunday, and then 2 more in Laval. So kind of an odd schedule. We'll talk to Mike Leone. Oh, by the way, yes, the team is home this Friday against Laval. Can't forget that. As tomorrow, to help promote that, we will be in studio for the first time. The great Jody Gage, Rochester sports royalty, holds how many Amherst franchise records, stayed in Rochester, identifiable, and was here so long you almost forget, wait a second, he was part of that last 96 Calder Cup team. And it was great to see him and Dixon Ward and Wayne Primo, and that was a lot of fun. This Friday night is going to have a kind of a different tenor, and something that I think Amherst fans kind of would welcome is that just the unbelievable, shocking loss of Scott Metcalf last spring. And this is the night that they're going to honor Metter and his memory, and not only what he meant to Amherst hockey, but what he meant to our community. So we'll talk to Jody Gage tomorrow in the sports bar. Our number, 866-4FAN, 866-4326, WGR Rochester. I did not screw up yesterday. We're going to try to flip it on the calendar, make it 2 straight days here.
Bat 1,000.
That's it. Yeah, bat 1,000 here in the sports bar. And away we go. The center of the sports universe has now shifted. It is no longer in Italy. It is in Indianapolis. And if you run a business, if you run another sports league, there are lessons to be learned from the NFL, right? It used to be you would look at Disney and like, wow, look at how Disney does things. And I think, competitors caught up to Disney, whether that's in broadcast television, whether it's their theme parks, but Disney still kind of was the leader in that. I just think the NFL has blown past every other league, and part of it is they know how to get our mind share. This is the time of year where we're kind of wide open for possibilities as a sports fan. The football season is over, and then what's next? Hey, I really want to get to spring training, but we're so early on in spring training, and let's be honest, spring training kind of goes a long time. And, the World Baseball Classic will be coming up next week. And, look, one difference between Rochester and Buffalo, just to say, and if you're listening from Buffalo, hi, Buffalo loves their Bisons, but I think per capita, somebody wants to debate me, I welcome the challenge because I think I would win a debate with you. Rochester's a better baseball town. So we will talk baseball from time to time, whether that's the Red Wings, the Yankees, or in the case of next week, I can't believe it begins on the 5th, the World Baseball Classic, which we're going to be fully invested in here in the show. Back to the point, though, the point being, hey, baseball can't get the mind share just yet. Hockey, all right, that was awesome, but now you have this kind of built-in buffer to let everybody get back. They can't do anything. The NBA last night, I cannot believe there were only 3 games in the league last night. Nothing accessible unless you had Peacock. Like, there was really nothing on last night other than you had Houston and Kansas. College basketball, you can kind of pick a game. So, again, to the point of the NFL, they know how to manage the calendar. And if you follow Sal Capaccio or anybody else in Indianapolis, they're showing you these pictures of the Radio Row for the Combine. This is not actually a sporting event. This is nothing more than a job interview and an audition. And we're going to make you run a few things for the cameras here and create our own content. That is how powerful the NFL is, that they can create something and make it the lead story. And every other league should be figuring out how do we do the same thing. And in absent of that, hey, there's a Monday night in February after the Olympics. Maybe schedule more than 3 games if you're the NBA. Maybe, here's an idea, if you're college hockey, put wall-to-wall games on Monday. Just random outside ideas that can get you more exposure on television where we're asking for this stuff. Well, I'm not complaining about the NFL. I'm an addict, just like you are. And to hear Brandon Beane speak today and to hear Joe Brady speak today, what are we most interested in? Okay, a few different levels I want to kind of go over this. Anybody wants to weigh in, 866-4326, 585-866-4326. Our phone number is Terrible Take Timmy is ready to take your calls. Layer number 1 would be Joe Brady. We heard Brady opening press conference, right? He's the man. He's the new head coach of the Buffalo Bills. And I think there were nods all around. Yeah, he won the press conference. He said all the right things. Good. It's you had time to prepare for that. And it's not an easy thing to get up in front of a room full of people. And you think you know what questions are coming, but until they actually do, it can be a little stressful. And I thought he did a very, very good job. This is a different setting, and I don't know if there's enough prep time, and I just want to know, okay, are we going to – what kind of Joe Brady are we going to get? Today's not the day to play Joe Brady lies. I can't wait till we get – maybe we'll review at some point because we're going to listen to this in real time. Our director of sales, Tim Thompson's like, oh, you should play Brady lies right in real time. I'm like, nah, maybe we'll do that and we'll kind of determine at another point. If you're new to the show, we always kind of put a lie detector on Sean McDermott. It is the season of hope. That's also part of this, too. That's another layer. Like, is Brady going to give you hope? Is he going to downplay things? How do both of these gentlemen kind of answer the questions today? I'm going to tell you about Brandon Beane. I think we've listened to enough of these offseason press conferences with Brandon Beane. You know what he's going to say in a roundabout way. He will pivot to, we're always looking to upgrade the roster. We will always take a call. We'll always be turning over stones. We'll always be doing those things that we should be doing as personnel people in the NFL. The question is, though, like, specifically, are we going to get any specifics about the wide receiver room? Are we going to get any specifics about the personnel when it comes to defense? That's the part I I myself want to know. Like, okay, how do these pieces fit in the Jim Leonhard scheme? And they've had a few weeks to kind of review and self-scout, if you will. Leonhard looking at the guys that were there and figuring out, okay, is this somebody that I think we can work with? Yes, no? If the answer is no and they're under contract, well, all right, should we release them now or figure out another plan? If they're a free agent, yes, no? Okay, well, then it becomes a lot easier, right? We're not going to really make an effort to re-sign this guy. Now, they're not going to tell you those sort of things, but like, we're looking for nuggets today. When you're going to listen to this here on WGR Rochester, bottom of the hour, you're going to want to hear from Brandon Beane. Okay, what specifically is he going to say? Are they putting what positions does he feel are good in this draft? And I think most people would say for a wide receiver, okay, I'm not a professional. Beane and the people that do this year round, they're the professionals. But from all I know, it seems like it's a pretty good year. If you're picking, say, I don't know, 26, where the Buffalo Bills are, you should get somebody, not to be a necessarily number one, but maybe somebody you develop into a future number one. Somebody who can be a true number two for this team. We were joined yesterday by Dan Fates, Buffalo Plus, 13 Wham. And like, he's got Boston, Daryl Boston, that's David Boston's son, as being his kind of crush of this draft. For me, I think it's just kind of fun with a Rochester angle. Casey Concepcion, okay, he left when he was 3. His dad's from here. I think that would be a lot of fun having that story angle out of Fisher coming up this summer. But that's also the secret here to the NFL, right? I'm formulating an opinion. Fates has an opinion. You, right now, formulating your opinions, and we could debate this, and we could look back at it. And if the Bills get it wrong and you had it right, how – see, that's the thing. The NFL's going to bring you along for the ride for the next 2+ months here of the NFL draft season. It's unbelievable. They know that by doing this now and getting this information, you're going to formulate opinions on how my team can be better, how my team should improve. And everyone has an opinion on this. And when we get to the draft, you will think your team knocked it out of the park, or you'll hate it, but then eventually you'll come around on it. And this is kind of the secret sauce to the NFL, is that this right here today, opening day of the Combine, begins the season of hope. The season of, well, maybe your team didn't make it to the Super Bowl and win. But you know what? Help is on the way. And here are the prospects that are going to fix everything. And in between there, we've got this other thing too, free agency, right? Whether it's the big ticket item or whether it's somebody that maybe just kind of bargain basement sort of thing. But yeah, you can kind of look in that direction too. And for the next 2 months, things that are on the sports calendar. Yeah. World Baseball Classic, NCAA Tournament, Masters, NBA playoffs, NHL, Stanley Cup playoffs, locally, Calder Cup playoffs. They will all pale in comparison to the moves that your favorite team does. And your favorite team being here in Western New York, I would assume the Buffalo Bills, but trust me, I know there's a lot of people here that, for various reasons. Maybe you didn't grow up here. Maybe your dad or your mom cheered for somebody else. Or maybe you just like being contrarian, right? That's also the fun part of this, that you can be a fan of another team. Whoever your team is, it's the same template. It's terrible. Take Timmy over here. He's a Browns fan. He'll well, no, actually, you're a terrible example. You'll hate whatever the Browns will do. I mean, that's not a good example. But by and large, you will be excited whatever your team will be doing this offseason. And we will be going bottom of this hour to Indianapolis, where Brandon Beane at 1:30-ish, Joe Brady at 1:45-ish. And I'm thinking they'll be more on time. Sean McDermott was never very punctual when it came to this sort of stuff. And I don't know if that's just a byproduct of being a head coach or that just McDermott's personality. He doesn't know us anything, right? Like his press conference, if he said 1, sometimes they'd be at 110. Regardless. So we're going to plan on 1:30 here today for Brandon Bean and then to be followed immediately by Joe Brady, which means, hey, if you want time for calls, it's either now or after that. We got Mike Leone coming up too, 866-4326. I do have to apologize. One guest who just did not time out right. We were going to talk to Matt Perino bottom of this hour, as he normally does on Tuesdays. And I've had a bunch of questions about the new show. Tons of them, right? And which that gets me fired up. Lets me know you're listening. People reaching out. And the one thing when in the old show with Danger and myself, we did everything to respond. Sometimes even if you were a troll, we would respond in troll-like fashion. But more often than not, with people with questions or takes, and it didn't have to be in the time frame of the show. We would always reach out. So I'm on X, at Gene Battaglia is my name. But I don't quite check it as frequently during the show here. But, off hours, definitely we can kind of take a look at things, or you can write to us on YouTube or Twitter. Our YouTube stream is going right now here, pointing to it. So a lot of ways you can reach out to us, but people reaching out regarding Matt Perino, who regular segment was in the old slot at 325. Moving forward, Matt will join us on Tuesdays in the 1 o'clock Eastern hour. So that's great news. Moving forward, you're an Amerks fan, Mike Leone, more often than not, will be in the 2 o'clock hour. And if we have to move it, we'll let you know well in advance. But we always like the insight of Mike Leone. And that's going to be fun because who's Mike Leone's mentor next hour when we talk to Mike Leone? It's John Cooper, head coach of the Tampa Bay Lightning, but relevant this week, head coach of the Canadian national team that enjoying a silver medal. So it's kind of like, hey, your mentor's on the other side. It really kind of felt a little divided over the week, but hey, all it is hockey. That's all this is. So we have a lot planned in the show today, and then we'll figure Matt Perino. We will pick back up next week. Chris in South Central Kentucky, again, our handle, WGR Rochester. Did I flub that, Tim? If I flub and say anything in regard to the old station imagery.
Never heard of it.
Okay, that's good. WGR Rochester is our handle online. Chris writing in. I think it's much more interesting to see who the Bills interviewed during the combine more than the measurables of each pick. Yes. And the first guy to kind of really do kind of a tracker of this sort of stuff, not of the combine, but just the visits, Ryan Talbot. Ryan Talbot from NewYorkUpstate.com will have a tracker of you're only allowed X number of players to visit. But that's always kind of a precursor to we're really kind of considering you. Let's get you in the building, and let's how you do coming into our environment and answering our questions right here. And that's always kind of a clue, right? Like, oh, yeah, Dawson Knox visited the Bills or whoever it is. And it's a fun exercise, too, to look at, all right, these are not first-round picks more often than not. That's the thing. Like, we will be fixated on first-round picks. And, okay, we could debate, is it Boston? Is it going to be whoever it is in terms of the wide receiver that you would hope the Buffalo Bills would draft in round 1 or 2? Yeah, there's 7 rounds overall here. And those picks, see Christian Benford, also count in the later rounds. You want to make sure that you're making the most of these opportunities. And sometimes these guys that are coming in mid-rounds, maybe we haven't even heard of. Probably we haven't even heard of unless you really, really, really like college football, somebody like a Chris Trapasso. So, Chris, you're absolutely right. The made-for-TV stuff, NFL Network, this coming weekend, I think it's kind of a background noise weekend for me in terms of sports viewing on television. Meaning, all right, NFL Combine, to me, that's kind of wallpaper. It's on, and all right, and maybe they'll see the scroll or something like that. Spring training baseball, had it on a little bit last night. It was the Dodgers and Mariners. What happened in the game? I couldn't tell you. It was just simply wallpaper. It's just hey, this is Arizona, and it's warm, and it's sunny, and I really don't like the Dodgers, and the Mariners are fun, but I don't really care about them. But you know what? It's baseball, and I'm looking forward to that stuff. We're going to, next hour here, I hate to say this since I sell, commercial advertising, but because we have these two press conferences coming up here, we're going to want to go and learn from these two men in Indianapolis, and Sal Capaccio will be anchoring out there. We'll take a break. We've got a sports update coming your way. We haven't gotten to the Sabres. A lot we got to get to. Mike Leone coming up next hour. It's the all-new Sports Bar with me. I haven't gotten over the talking in third person. My name is Gene Battaglia. This is the Fan Rochester.
So much action, we couldn't fit it all in one app. Take WGR Rochester and the Sports Bar with Gene Battaglia. Sports Update.
NFL Combine beginning today. Bills GM Brandon Beane, head coach Joe Brady. They will be talking here coming up shortly. Beane telling One Bills Live the team has restructured the contract of right tackle Spencer Brown. Sabres beginning the stretch run tomorrow night, playing at New Jersey. Marty Baron and whether Tage Thompson will be playing.
First of all, Jack Hughes, the word is out in New Jersey, is expected to play tomorrow night for the Devils. So if Jack Hughes is playing, I would anticipate that Tage Thompson would also play. Like, I don't see why one would and the other one wouldn't. So let's just go from there.
The Amherst are in Cleveland coming up tomorrow as well. Head coach Mike Leone will join us next hour here in the Sports Bar. Sports is brought to you by GetMyPerks.com. Today, get a half-price certificate to Lasertron in Henrietta. For this and other great deals, log on to GetMyPerks.com. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, WGR Rochester.
Top Shelf Sports Talk. You're hanging out in the Sports Bar with Gene Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 WGR, Rochester.
So let's go to Indianapolis, where Brandon Beane talking to the media.
Very bright and, quite frankly, smarter than me. Sometimes they can be arrogant. I didn't feel that. I felt a guy that was comfortable in his skin, had a well thought out plan, and when his times comes, and I told him, I said, I'd love to stay in touch with you and help you in any way I can. But I think, if he gets the right opportunity at the right spot at the right time, I think he'll be successful. Yeah, I mean, I think those two click because Josh has thick skin, and we've seen Brian. Like Brian, he's from Buffalo. He's blue collar. He's going to let you know that he loves you, and he's also going to let you know that you screwed up. And so I think that's why Brian and Josh really connected, and was a big part of Josh's early ascension as a Bill to where he's at. And I know they have a fond, their fond relationship continued even as Brian went to New York, and I'm sure it'll continue now that Brian's in Tennessee. But I'm sure you're asking because of Cam Ward or whatever. And I think Brian's he'll be a great asset for Cam. I would tell him to make sure you got thick skin, and it's all coming from a good place. But Brian's very smart, and if Cam Ward will listen, he'll develop him.
A few GMs choose not to come to this, Brandon. Why is this event still important?
Great question. To me personally, and everyone's got their own way to do this, I want every opportunity I can to be in front of as many prospects as we can get in front of. And so whether that's the Senior Bowl, the Combine, the 30 visits, any chance, pro days that we can get 15 minutes here, 20 minutes there, because I can tell you from my experiences, sometimes I've felt one way about a player the first interaction and felt differently the second interaction, wherever that may be. And so I just think for me and our team, as many exposures as we can get, and sometimes that's just breaking bread, sometimes that is on the whiteboard, sometimes it's watching plays, and you just pick up so many things. Like, we were showing a player last night, some good plays, and then we went to a bad play, and he owned up to it. But he had a chance to point to a coach or a teammate, and he didn't, and that just kind of told us how he operates. Yeah, I mean, it's added another dimension. You're always trying to, back in the day, if a guy transferred one time, you kind of asked what happened, like, did you get run out of this school or whatever? Well, now it's, we interviewed a player last night, and I was like, why'd you stay here 4 years? Like, what happened? It's almost, it's flipped, but you do ask those questions, and sometimes you ask them about, did you leave just because of the money? Did you leave for other reasons? You kind of just want to know. And at the same time, our scouts, one of their job is talking to individuals at each program and trying to put together that puzzle of who this person is, how they tick. Are they simply motivated just for money, or is the money a side benefit to they really still playing the game for the love of the game? Yeah, great question. I think we need to see Keon have the offseason he had a year ago, which was excellent. We couldn't have asked for anything more. He came to phase 1, phase 2, all that stuff dialed in, ready to go. You could tell he'd been working out, and then a lot of the people here were at training camp. He had an excellent camp. Let's do that again, and then not some of the things we've talked about is just it's the maturity, it's the off the field that can get in the way. I've been in this league 28. This will be 29 seasons. I've seen that many times get in the way of people's opportunities to grow and not only on the field but expand their net worth off the field. And so that is go back and do what you did all off season and your training camp. And if you remember, you had a great game 1 against Baltimore. Don't let some of the maturity issues off the field affect the product on the field. If he does that, he'll have every chance. I know we've got some new coaches, and they're excited to meet him and get to work with him, and we're aware of him in the draft process a couple years ago, and so they kind of want to, try to start mold him in the way they see and envision him for our team. Yeah, I mean, it's every year we're 0-0 at this point, and that's how you view it, whether you won the Super Bowl or whether you won 2 games. And so I don't, when we come here, it's not usually like, hey, we own the AFC East or whatever. I know we had a run there. We've got a new team that we have to build, and everybody's 0-0, and so right now we're in that quote unquote roster building season of free agency and the draft over the next 2 months. And so it's really just focusing on, with our new coaches, getting everyone on the same page of what we want the 2026 iteration of the Buffalo Bills to be. Obviously, financial constraints can get in the way. You'd love to pay every player or have all first-round picks. But, we've got a new head coach. There will be energy that comes with that in any building that has a new head coach, and so it's just trying to get us all on the same page, the collective, and start over. And again, the Patriots, much credit to Mike Vrabel and Elliott Wolf and that staff for the run they made this year.
Brandon, as part of the head coach process, you guys also talked to Davis Webb, obviously the history of Buffalo, but why is he, in your opinion, getting so much buzz right now? And how do you feel like in general, how he presented himself through that process?
Yeah, Davis is very smart. Obviously, when he walks into a room, he's going to get respect because he played the game at this level. He started games, was I think, 2nd or 3rd round pick with the Giants. We saw the coaching side of Davis as a player. There were many times we would acquire a player in the season, and the coaches are up there game planning, and Davis would say, it can be a running back, a receiver, a tight end. I'll take him down to the meeting room myself and school him up. And I know that was one of the reasons Brian Daboll wanted to get him to New York to help him install his offense and teach as many people as he could. He's a natural teacher, a natural communicator. He's very smart. He's worked now for a few seasons under Sean Payton. Sean's a Hall of Fame head coach. So, and his dad, was a football coach in Texas. And so I think all of that is pouring into him. He's young as well. And so as we talked about when this opportunity came, and then when we went in a different direction, was, hey, dude, you've only actually been coaching 3 years. You've been playing, so it seems like longer. Just keep building on this. He's going to get an opportunity, I believe, to call plays now, which I think will only help, his resume.
Brandon, the Bills Mafia is like the best division in NFL, honestly, it's about the best division in America. And I'm curious if you've noticed this offseason, not with the players or anything, but a little bit of a dent in faith that the fans have in the organization. Have you perceived that at all?
No, I mean, listen, what I would say about fans in general, you want fans that are passionate. Fans that are not, that means they don't care. And if they don't care, then that's not an exciting product to watch. And so we love our fans. We're excited about a new stadium that we're going into. We're excited about what this 2026 Bills team will be. And it's up to us to put the right product out there, to make them excited and see the vision going forward.
Hey, Brandon, the number 26 pick means across the defense and offense. How do you weigh trading up for a high impact player versus trading down to get picks and things?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's every year in the draft, whether you're picking at 1 or 26, like we are this year, you're weighing how valuable you have graded the asset of each player that you've got in the first round. And I think it's one of those ones, if as the board is sliding down, getting closer to you, if you feel like there's a player that, let's just say you've got a grade that you would say that's a top 10 grade, like, and you're at pick 18 to 20, and you're going, man, there's a big drop from there. That's when you start to get aggressive and say, I need to go up and use some assets. On the flip side of that, if you don't see that and your board is starting to get wiped out, you're at pick 22, 23, and you're like, man, I don't have any first-round grades left. I'm really in the second. That's the point where you start saying, what assets can we gain to go back? So it's really important to build your board right the next couple of months and let it speak to you what you need to do.
What do you tell yourself to not get too aggressive?
Yeah, that's probably my biggest people would tell you I have a lot of downfalls, but one of my downfalls is I probably get a little aggressive, and I know that, and I try to put people around me to strap me down to the desk, and if they think I'm getting out of line, to at least grab me before I do it and say, are you sure about this? Because it's going to cost us your third round or whatever pick it's going to cost us. Yeah.
New scheme on defense. What's it been like the last month? Sort of maybe pivoting what the archetypes and types of players you're going to have. Who all was involved in that? What was the process been the last week? This event.
This process, yeah, it's been fun. You know, anytime you have new people, new ideas, you're kind of just sharing experiences and thoughts. And I think I've talked about it some. I know I just talked about it over there, but after Jim got settled and, Joe and, before Joe hired him, we talked about how, the attractiveness, if he were to hire Jim, he kind of went through his candidates of how they would run their defense. And one of the attractive pieces that Jim brought was the multiplicity and the different variations and going more to a 5 down front and a 3-4 scheme. But one of the great things, and I think that was relieving to our personnel staff, was when he sat in there for, with Joe for an hour 15, hour and a half, was, listen, guys, we want good football players. We don't want to force, a square peg in a round hole. Like, yes, if things are even, we would prefer this as our Sam backer, or this is our corner. This is how we want our safeties to be, whether it's interchangeable or a box and a free. So we kind of went through all those things, but at the end of the day, these guys have a good vision, a good plan, and those discussions are not final. We're still talking through, and even sometimes those conversations come up at night when when we're in these meeting rooms, meeting with some of these players when they kind of walk out, and kind of re-sparks conversation. So that will continue over the coming weeks into free agency, and then of course into the draft.
How did John Fox become part of your staff?
Yeah.
What does he bring?
Yeah, I mean, Foxy is obviously, I worked for John as a young guy, and he's one of the people, the reasons that I'm probably here. I learned a lot watching him and Marty Herney run an operation and lead us to a Super Bowl and another NFC Championship game. John's been a 16-year head coach, coached in 2 Super Bowls. He knows what it's looked like. I mean, we were laughing. He was asking people the other day, do you know who Chuck Noll was? He started under Chuck Noll, and it's funny when you got young people in there. Most of them did, but there's a couple of them like, but John will be a great, sounding board. It was, the long and short of this was, Joe was going through some various candidates. He wanted to have someone who, knowing he's a first-time head coach, that had sat in the seat. So that was one of the names that I brought up, but I told him, this is your hire. Like, you get to know John. And so I connected them, and then they had a conversation originally with us, with the 3 of us, and then they separately, had at least 1 or 2 conversations, and Joe came in and was like, I'd like to hire, Coach Fox. And so he's been here a couple weeks. It's been great to have him around. As you guys will get to know him, he's a very personable guy, but very smart, a lot of experiences, and I know Joe's excited to have him on the staff. I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Now that you've had a month to marinate on it, why do you think you got promoted and Sean got fired?
That's a question for Terry. Like, we're kind of just moving forward. I'm not sure of that. Yeah. All right.
You said on Mobile's Live, I believe you restructured the contract with Spencer Brown. Could you confirm that?
Yes.
Can you give us insight on where you are right now, cap?
I don't know. I mean, the final number of the cap is not. I don't know that now. There was a labor seminar meeting this morning. Maybe we got that number. I don't know. I was in a different meeting, but once we get that, we'll know. But it saves us a little over $10 million with the cap conversion of Spencer. I want to say 10.4, but it's something close to that. Don't hold me to it. Yep. Okay. Thank you.
That was Bills GM Brandon Beane. Going to hear from Joe Brady here, stepping up to the podium right now. You're listening to WGR.
All ready for you guys.
Same question. What does John Fox bring to you? Why did you want to bring a guy like John Fox specifically?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think anytime 16 years of head coaching experience, I think that was the number one thing that intrigued me. But I think I've been on some staffs where you get some guys that you bring them in as like senior assistants, and it's like, hey, I need a guy I can lean on through some head coaching moments. Well, I didn't want somebody that was strictly just in an office just waiting for, hey, when do you need some help? I wanted a guy that wanted to still coach football, right? And so Coach Fox he's sitting in the defensive meetings, he's giving ideas, he's going through it all, and then, hey, when things go, I know he's a guy that's not going to just be a yes man, right? He's been through it all, and someone that I can lean on in those moments.
Speaking of coaches, you hired both your coordinators, from Denver, Pete Carmichael, Jim Leonard. Talk a little bit about that decision and what they did.
Yeah, I mean, Pete. Look, I was with Pete, and for 2 years in New Orleans, and a guy that I looked up to at the highest, and I knew if there was ever going to be an opportunity to be a head football coach, I'd want Pete Carmichael on my staff, and that was such a huge get for me. It was a lot of people talk about, you got to get your offensive play call, you got to get your defensive coordinator, but Pete was the first call, and that was important for me. And Jim Leonard, obviously we've gone against Denver. I've followed Jim, in his back to when he was at Wisconsin, and at the Penn State days for me, and I always try to write down coaches that while I'm evaluating, I notice how their either defenses play or their groups, the defensive backs, and I go back to my notes from when we played them in the playoffs 2 years ago, and it was just like how well coached they were. And the more that you talk with Jim, and the more that I'm around him even now, it was a no-brainer decision for me.
Hey Joe, what made you choose what's the decision on who you brought in as coaching staff?
I think the biggest thing was I was looking for a lot of people that weren't necessarily exactly like me, right, in terms of background, both offensively, defensively, even special teams. And then once I kind of got the coordinators in place, those were the most important, and then trying to build a staff around that. I think you want to build an offensive staff you need some guys that are very black and white, and they do things one way and they can't think outside the box, and you need someone else in that room that is an outside the box thinker. And so just a bunch of different personalities. The unique thing is that I've been in the building, so I also know what's in those rooms, right? So I was able to kind of build around a coaching staff around some of the personalities in the room, and it made it a little easier for me.
How necessary is it to have reset conversations with some of the people in the building, as far as the way you are initially relating in your former role versus, in the new role, and establishing your voice and authority and authenticity now? Do you find that that's necessary, or will it be necessary to have some resets?
Yeah, look, this is year 1. It's not year 10, right? And I think that's, there's been a foundation that's been set here, and it might be a little different in a sense of we understand what expectations and everything that comes with it, right? But this isn't just, hey, Joe Brady's in and everything's just his business as usual, right? And so it's important that everybody in the organization knows it, because if we continue to speak about how things used to be, then we'll never continue to go forward. And so I have so much respect for the past, but it's year 1 in organization right now. Yeah, look, I think we can every offseason we get less and less time with our players. The private quarterback coach, they actually have their hands on and are with the players way more than we are. And I think the dialogue that we have with them, speaking the language, talking through them, but I think it's essential nowadays. And I think having the relationships with those coaches is important. But I think they've elevated the game. I think sometimes, private quarterback coaches might get a knock on, their ways of doing things, but I think it's actually helped the quarterback play in the league, especially.
What are you looking for in wide receivers for the combine? Specific drills, nuances? So
Yeah, I think the biggest thing about wide receiver play, right, is no two receivers are the exact same, right? And so I think understanding their type of skill sets and seeing what those kind of look in specific drills, right? There's some guys that are naturally quicker. Well, I hope to see that quickness in some of the drills, and some guys are straight line speed that they might struggle in a in a shuttle drill or whatnot. But to me, I like the combine to really understand their personality, what makes them tick, kind of do they love. I just want football players that love ball, right? And so trying to get an opportunity to just kind of connect with them, understand that look, you can test really well, and I hope those guys do that. But you are what you put on tape as well, and I'm going to take that way more into consideration.
I think Jason Reppert and Joe Dana were the only two defensive coaches retained. What about those guys, and what do you feel about what the work that they've done and why they've stuck well?
Yeah, I mean, they obviously did a great job here, and it was important. Look, it was tough for a lot of the guys on our defensive staff, right? Because I told myself if I ever got to be a head football coach, I wasn't going to walk into a job and tell a coordinator this is your coaching staff, right? And fortunately, we had a lot of good coaches, but I could have had, we could have had Bill Walsh as our linebackers coach, but if Jim Leonard needed somebody that was his right-hand man to coach linebackers, he probably would have taken Bill Walsh. But if it was going to be, hey, I needed some of his guys as well. And I know what that's like being a coordinator and you look and you don't have someone next to you, right? And so I think that was important. So through that process, it was making sure those guys understand how I felt about them. And look, Joe Dana's done obviously an incredible job, in the back end. He's extremely bright, been in a lot of different systems. And then Rebs, Rebs' second time in Buffalo, loves Buffalo. He had opportunities to go other places and to have even in more of an elevated role, and chose to be here. And that means a lot to me.
How can the meetings and everything else this week entails be helpful for you, as a first-time head coach, getting ready for, free agency, the draft, and the rest of the offseason?
Are you saying meetings in terms of like outside of like formal interviews?
The player interviews.
Yeah.
Everybody knows the benefit of the GM being here or scout, but
Yeah.
as a head coach, I'm curious from your perspective.
Look, anytime that you can have contact with a player and get to know them, see them in settings, uncomfortable settings, see them talking football, see them around. I watch how guys walk with their groups at the combine, right? Like, who's the guy that's on his phone just sitting in the back? Who's the guy that's kind of hyping his boys while they're running the 40? Like, all those things are important, right? And when you're bringing in people into our locker room, you can't just overlook all those things. And so I think anytime that we can have an interaction, be able to talk with them and see them, and just in these settings, I don't know why you wouldn't take advantage of that.
We know you're pretty animated in the box. What should we expect as you as head coach on the sidelines?
That's a great question. Only time will tell. Look, I'm animated no matter what. That's kind of my personality. I hope nothing changes in who I am, through this. I'm the same person I was when I was a GA as the same guy in front of you right now, right? So, hope you'll see the exact same person. Hopefully a good animation. I mean, it's everything. The work ethic, the approach, everything I learned from James Franklin, Joe Moorhead. I learned so much football doing that. Like, I'm a small school William & Mary guy, right? Like, and it got me an opportunity to go kind of see big time football and see the detail that it takes to be a part of a winning organization. And there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things that I do that I still feel like I'm a GA in a lot of that sense. And but the work ethic, the amount of knowledge that I learned, the process that I went in the off season, I learned it all by being a GA. And like I said, I wouldn't be up here if I didn't go through that.
You obviously hired some guys from that, or Sean just hired Ron Perry to coach receivers. What's Ron like?
He's a stud. He's going to be a future OC in this league. Look, RC, we had a lot of success. Josh Allen won an MVP with RC as his quarterback coach, right? He was like my right-hand man here. And so obviously it's sad for him to not be working with us anymore, but I know how Sean feels about him. I know he's going to be a huge component for Davis, and I have nothing but love for RC as a person and as a coach.
You retained Allen. He's been known as that guy who can play all across the field. But there's also an ability for a guy maybe to be a starter? How do you weigh that sometimes? Is he better at one job to be the starter, or a guy we can use all over the place sometimes?
Yeah, I mean, look, everybody has a role on your football team as it kind of gets to the season time. But in the off season, man, you want a bunch of guys that are sitting there having the mindset like, here we go, I'm going and I'm gonna take it and I'm gonna be the starter, right? And I don't want people always to be happy with their role come the season time. But a guy like Alec a couple years ago was the jumbo, and man, he embraced it, right? And then last year he didn't play as much. You know, we fortunately we had Jackson Hawes, didn't have to live in the jumbo world. But you know, when he had the opportunities to go in, he didn't blink. And you want guys like Alec Anderson on your football team, right? Like the type of edge he plays with. You know, we talk a lot about Bills blue, like type of players. Well, we also want some Bills red guys, some guys that have an edge, a little bit of personality to them. And as we know, Alec Anderson, sometimes I need him to not talk, but he does it a lot, and I love him for it. So I was so excited to get him back. Yeah, like I joke all the time, and I know I say the same thing all the time, but like I got my master's degree at Penn State, and then I got my doctorate in New Orleans, right? It was everything to me in New Orleans, working with Pete Carmichael, right? Sean Payton, just seeing how one of the game's greatest minds to ever play come up with plays, and not just but like explain the why and be able to teach and then motivate and reach his football team. And you know, I can be on all day talking about how great of a coach I think Sean Payton is, and it helped. I wouldn't have been able to call plays at LSU from being a coaching assistant if I didn't have that experience in New Orleans.
You said he talked to you sort of like around the end of the season and all that. And it's just like when he's obviously elevated Davis as coordinator, first guy's had beside Joe in a long time. Like, what would it be like to be Sean's offensive coordinator and maybe be calling plays?
I mean, I don't think you can be around somebody that's like, to be a first-time play caller, to have Sean Payton as a resource. I think, and look, I think Davis is an absolute stud. Like, he's going to be great regardless. But just to have somebody that's been through it and has called a lot of games at a high level to pick his brain and everything like that, it's going to be a huge resource for him. Yeah, I think no different than Khalil and everybody else, right? It's as we put together this roster, just finding different ways to utilize the guys where it's not the same year in and year out. And I think Khalil can play inside and outside, right? And there's really not a lot of things Khalil can't do. And as we watch cut-ups and as we go through things and put it all together, it's there's definitely ways to get the ball in his hands in different ways. And we have to continue to grow his game because he's such a huge component to our offense, right? He's one of our best football players, and when the ball's in his hands, good things is happening, and it doesn't necessarily always have to be in a short range. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's look, you want to be somewhere where there's an expectation going into the year of we all know what we're chasing, right? And you want to be a part of that. And I learned that day one when I stepped on foot at LSU of what you were walking into, and that's why we coach, right? I'm not going to change who I am, but there's definitely expectations there, and it's Buffalo expects the same out of their team.
How's Josh's foot?
Josh, he just played 3 games or however many games that was. You see him when a guy gets surgery. He was able to. When you guys see him in the games and not blink, and there's one guy you never worry about is Josh Allen.
Can you speak about the positives that are going to come with you being here in a coordinator role before this, and coaching role?
Look, I think there's a lot of good in the sense of understanding how the communication within the building and the resources and downstairs, upstairs, and knowing a lot of the players, even the defensive players, right? I think it's, I'm not just walking in completely brand new to it all, but I also think it's important for everybody to understand is that I'm not the offensive coordinator anymore either, right? And so I can't be viewed in that role, and it's important for me to, bridge those gaps and show the awareness and understanding of. We've had a lot of success here, and I've had a little part of it. But in order for us to continue to have success or to continue to elevate, I'm going to have to do things differently. And, and a lot of that has to do with the communication across the building for me.
Thanks, everybody.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
That is the new head coach of the Buffalo Bills, Joe Brady. taking the podium out in Indianapolis. Also, that you heard before that, General Manager Brandon Beane, as we welcome you back in. Gene Battaglia here on WGR Rochester. We've got Mike Leone coming up at the bottom of next hour. Some interesting things. There is certainly one headline story here in terms of news for the Buffalo Bills today, opening up some cap space, some thoughts on Keon Coleman. John Fox, how did that all come to be? I've got thoughts on that. We've got time for your calls, your tweets as well. Our new handle on X, it's WGR Rochester. The phone number remains the same, 585-866-4326, 585-866-4326. This is WGR Rochester.
You're in the Sports Bar with Gene Battaglia WGR Rochester, the sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950 WGR Rochester, an Odyssey sports station. WGR Rochester, sports update.
Bills General Manager Brandon Beane telling reporters just now at the Combine that Spencer Brown has restructured his contract. That'll save the Bills $10.4 million against the salary cap this coming season. The Sabres beginning their stretch run tomorrow night. Final 25 games of the regular season. They are at New Jersey. Head coach Lindy Ruff today giving an update on Yuri Kulich.
I'm not sure the exact date, but it's early March here that he'll have, a second test to see where the blood clot and everything, all that is at. And, first and foremost, we're just hoping, health-wise that this rectifies and he can just carry on. So that's the most important part.
Ruff went Jeremy and Joe on WGR this morning. The Amerks are in Cleveland Wednesday. Head coach Mike Leone joins us a little later this hour. Amerks are home Friday night against Laval. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, WGR Rochester.
Welcome into the Sports Bar with Gene Battaglia, where the voice of the Rochester fan is heard. Pull up a stool and join us at 866-4326. This is WGR Rochester, and the Sports Bar with Gene Battaglia is on now.
Hour number 2 of the award-winning Sports Bar. You found us here. Gene Battaglia with you here in my favorite city, my hometown, Rochester, New York. Our phone number, 866-4326, 866-4FAN. As we mentioned in the update, Mike Leone joining us at the bottom of the hour. It's funny, when Danger made the announcement, and it wasn't a surprise to us in the building, we knew this was coming for a long time, but it wasn't news to everybody else. Never did he say, hey, we're going to audition for a new co-host. Like, we have producer Terrible Take Timmy here. And I'm not going to mention who. It's funny, like people reaching out. And I appreciate people looking for opportunities, right? And I'm bringing only this up today because I think her suspicions were true about John Fox. Meaning, how did Fox end up on this Bills coaching staff? That's kind of an odd pull, right? And then you think, oh, that's it. So Brandon Beane just confirming now that he was the one who brought up John Fox's name to Joe Brady when Joe Brady's saying, hey, should we have somebody with experience on this? That Beane had been in contact with John Fox. Let's read between the lines, right? John Fox, knows there's a job opening in Buffalo. It's there. It's a cruel business, right? Sean McDermott, you're fired. And everybody, how many people, wouldn't you love to know, reached out to either Brandon Beane or Bill's HR department or whatever it was? Hey, that head coaching job. Like they interviewed one, ended up being 9 guys.
Sorry, I'm new at this.
9 guys.
Page.
9 guys.
We'll get there.
9 guys.
9 times.
Yes, it made it over. Like Phillip Rivers. Why are you even bothering with that? Well, who knows what the agenda is behind some of these. But I would imagine that John Fox, I don't know this for sure, probably called up Brandon Beane and said, hey, can I help? And Beane's like, you know what, hold on. And in the end, you have John Fox serving as this kind of senior consultant role. He really doesn't have a role. But if Joe Brady has a question when it comes to experience, to hear it, I didn't know this. Like John Fox got to start on a Chuck Noll. Good, my gosh, you're old, man. Saying that kind of jokingly. 2 Super Bowls, 16 years as a head coach in the league. Not too bad. The only guy in NFL history, by the way, John Fox, who is 0-2 in Super Bowl history as a head coach, having lost with 2 different teams. You forget that he was a head coach in Denver when they got clocked by Seattle, that one game, that forgettable Super Bowl at MetLife Stadium. 866-4326, 866-4326 here. You can write to us. Our handle being WGR Rochester is, the clock reset to 0. I screwed up last hour. I got to hold myself accountable. I should have it like Post-it notes, sticky notes, everything around here. So, I think I get a little bit of grace, maybe, here. Just a little bit. Our buddy Brian in Hilton writing in, very happy to hear the opening theme song to the Sports Bar didn't carry over to the new show. Tough to hear 15 times a week. Did Chris in Western Kentucky write the Cars for Kids theme as well? Wow, there's a lot to unpack there. First of all, that wasn't Chris in Kentucky writing that. That was actually Sean in Long Island. And if anybody wants to write a theme show open, the thing is with the AI stuff, kind of scary some of the stuff you can kind of do. Like if I'm a musician, I'm like, oh boy, that's kind of scary. And, Pete writing in, I'm listening to Gene on WGR Rochester. The Bills have little nuggets like John Fox. There's my Jets, Aaron Glenn, talking about superpowers. Oh, my gosh. So, literally, Aaron Glenn just talked about his play calling is my superpower. Is his quote today. Keeping your job as Jets head coach after a miserable season like that, that's a superpower. Let me correct you on that, Aaron. Thank you, Peter, for writing in. Anybody that also wants to write in, our handle, WGR Rochester, $10.4 million. All right, here we go, because this is the first order of business. And, yes, you're there for the interviews. You're there for the medical. Really, this is the time where I just imagine Indianapolis crawling with agents. And Brandon Beane probably has a calendar that's pretty darn full. And one thing off his to-do list, he got done. And good on Spencer Brown. If you had to say, will Spencer Brown be a part of the Buffalo Bills in the year 2028, let's just say. That's kind of where I put it. Will they be here in 2 years? If the answer is yes, if they're still a starter, then, yeah, this makes all the sense in the world to convert some of this bonus money to, base money to bonus money. Got that backwards. And then the bonus money acts like a credit card. You'll have to account for that somewhere down the road. But with the cap going up and up, double-digit growth, it seems like year over year in the NFL, you will have, room to play with every year if you continue on this sort of way. So the Bills will have some room, not a lot, not as much as the Jets, not as much as the Patriots. But if the Bills want to make a run, it's one big-ticket item. What would that be? And they're not done yet. And look, you should ask Josh Allen to do the same thing. Mahomes just did this in Kansas City. Josh Allen, you push this should become an annual event. Once a year, Josh Allen restructures his contract, and at the end, it's going to look disgusting. And there might be a 1 year, 2 year window where the Bills will just be paralyzed and won't be able to do anything, like the Cleveland Browns. But saying that for Tim's benefit, who cares? This is the time you make a run at this sort of stuff. And I will gladly, in the year 2030, 31, whenever that time is that Josh Allen waves and says, that my time here is over, okay, then we'll pay the bill at that point. But right now, let's see what can happen. And again, entering the season of hope here is always kind of a fun thing. Mike Leone will be joining us here in a few minutes. 866-4326 is our phone number. Also, that nugget from Brandon Beane about Keon Coleman. Okay. So kind of resetting here. And a lot of that stuff you kind of sifted through. I almost forgot about this. Like, why are we talking about Brian Dable? Why are we talking about Davis Webb? Oh, that's right. These press conferences aren't just Western New York media. These are writers from other markets. So if the Denver writer wants to ask and do a story about Davis Webb, hey, there's the Bills general manager, and I can get a quote from him saying nice flowery things about our new play caller. That's the way this kind of works, right? So there was other media agendas kind of jumping in. But there was one other question that was asked about Keon Coleman. And step one, Brandon Beane said he's got to come in and have an excellent offseason. You would think, right? That's your job as a professional. But remember, OTAs by definition are voluntary. And mandatory minicamp isn't what he's kind of getting at. Like, the offseason for Keon Coleman should begin right now, if it hasn't already begun. So that's kind of the message from Bean. But then, hey, that happened all last year. And we could pull up any number of articles or any number of sound bites from the old show talking about Keon Coleman and how excited we were at St. John Fisher. And then you look at the tape from week 1. Ravens, over 100 yards, and makes a great diving catch. And then what? I don't know. That's the fascinating part, where Bean says he has to work on his maturity in off the field. I guess, in a way, it's a credit to the Bills organization that the convenient thing would be somebody to pull you aside, not by you, I mean, pull, say, Matt Perino or Sal Capaccio or somebody, hey, this is what happened, blah, 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 blah. We really don't. You know, we just kind of bought it that, okay, he was late for a meeting here. And maybe that's all it was. But to see Keon Coleman's kind of fallout as the season, it was kind of unsavory. And that was supposed to be part of the solution for this Bills team, is that a young receiver, second year, is actually going to take a step up. And anything but. His game 1 was great, and then the rest of the season. But then the perplexing thing was, all right, well, when it mattered most in the postseason, there he was making a nice stiff arm down in Jacksonville for a big gain. Just one play, but sometimes in a playoff game, that's all you need, and that set up a score. And then he actually scored in the Denver game. Now, I'm not here to break down the tape and tell you what he did and didn't do away from the football in terms of blocking, blah, blah, blah. But you would think that just from those 2 plays alone, that would give you some sort of hope that, okay, this is workable. Maybe we can kind of do this. Or even if it isn't workable, then you move the guy. So it goes back to that press conference from a month ago where, you know, his trade value, if there was any, took a big time hit there. Talk about another thing here. So we have all these stories kind of going on because a lot of these coaches and GMs are talking concurrently, right? We just mentioned how Peter pointed out that you had Aaron Glenn talking about his superpower. That's fantastic. You also have Texans general manager Nick Caserio talking on his quarterback, C.J. Stroud. So this kind of picked up steam. Now, we're not talking Houston Texan football here in this show. However, like, that's somebody whose career kind of went sideways. And if he did was just enough of a quarterback to with that defense, they should have gone further than winning just one game in Pittsburgh against a broken-down Aaron Rodgers. That's a team that should have defeated the New England Patriots. Aaron, look, C.J. Stroud was terrible this year. He has 1 year left on his contract. It would only be an $11 million dead cap figure. If you think you could upgrade, if you think you could get something of trade value, why wouldn't you? And I can understand why Houston Sports Talk Radio would just say, what if? And it's just kind of a debatable point. And then you had John McClain last week say, longtime Houston sports writer, kind of semi-retired but still weighing in on things, say he would walk down naked down the streets of Houston. Like, we don't need to see that. But no. Thank you, Tim. But we definitely don't think that C.J. Stroud's going to move on. This after the quote from Caserio today, calling any speculation of him being moved as moronic. Okay, fine. Then what I would suggest, though, is that if it doesn't get any better, maybe he was hurt, maybe there's other reasons, that just wasn't good enough last year for the Texans, a team that should be competing for a Super Bowl but never quite gets over the hump. Only team never to make it to a championship game. Isn't that wild? Like, you would think, like Houston, all these playoff appearances, they would get to one championship game. And I thought it was going to be this year. Thought it was going to be Buffalo at Houston, didn't you? Yeah, everybody kind of nodding their head. No, that didn't happen. And, we talk about the disappointing for the Bills. That's a team that's disappointing. But the Bills have more hope because of Josh Allen. I will take a franchise, top 5, top 2, maybe the best in the league, Josh Allen, and work in progress defense, rather than a top 5, top 2, maybe the best in the league defense, and a quarterback that is trending in the wrong direction. Mike Leone will join us next here. My name is Gene Battaglia here on WGR Rochester.
So much action. Sports Update.
NFL Combine beginning today, and the headline in terms of the Buffalo Bills, General Manager Brandon Beane telling us that Spencer Brown has restructured his contract that's going to save the Bills $10.4 million against the Cap this coming year. Tomorrow night, finally, we get back to Sabres hockey as the stretch run begins. Marty Baron on whether Tage Thompson will be playing.
First of all, Jack Hughes, the word is out in New Jersey, is expected to play tomorrow night for the Devils. So if Jack Hughes is playing, I would anticipate that Tage Thompson would also play. Like, I don't see why one would and the other one wouldn't. So let's just go from there.
Meanwhile, the Amerks are in Cleveland coming up Wednesday. Head coach Mike Leone join us next in the Sports Bar. Sports is brought to you by GetMyPerks.com. Today, get a half-price certificate to Lasertron in Henrietta. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, WGR Rochester.
The best local sports talk in the Flower City. The Sports Bar with Gene Battaglia on the Sports Leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950 WGR, Rochester.
I don't know how many people, it was more than one that said, hey, did you set your alarm for Sunday? Like, okay, it's kind of cute. Like, you get to my age, you're waking up regardless. It wasn't like it was 5 a.m. or anything like that. But one guy who I don't think sleeps all that much, just because I know how hard he works, is the head coach of the Rochester Americans, Mike Leone. And Mike, appreciate your time here on a travel day. Thanks so much. And I guess let's just kind of start with that. What an amazing Olympic gold medal game. Your thoughts on that game, Coach, and what a game like that can do for the sport of hockey?
Yeah, no, like you said, it was an amazing hockey game. Just the speed and the skill, and I think you look at I don't want to get into gambling, but you look at the talent on the ice, and the over under for the game was 5.5. So that tells you a lot with how much skill was on the ice, and 2-1 hockey game, and it gets into overtime, and U.S. guys made a play, and you need in those type of events, you need your goalie to be really good, and I thought the goalie was the best player on the ice, and you kind of had that feeling in the second period. It could have been 4-5 to 1 Canada. Those goals don't go in, and then they hang on, get the kill at the end, go to overtime, and then overtime is it's anyone's game. I think I'm more in line with what John Cooper said. There's a reason why they don't have it in the Stanley Cup playoffs, 3-on-3 overtime, but those were the rules. And all for USA Hockey, I spent many years there. I coached, quite a few players that are in the NHL now that came through that program. So incredible day of hockey for sure.
Yeah, Coach, going back to last Thursday, we had Don Stevens actually in our studio with us with the promotion when the Calder Cup came in. And no, I didn't hoist the Calder Cup. I have too much respect for I shouldn't even touch it, right? At the same time we're doing the interview with Don, the women's gold medal game is going in overtime. We take a break, and then we look up, and I just go, ugh, 3-on-3. We're really going to decide this. And Don says, no. You know the rules going into this here, so no complaints either way this goes. Do you ever find yourself kind of managing a game, based on the opponent, whether, hey, we got to make sure, gentlemen, we're getting this done here in 60 minutes here tonight?
Not necessarily. Like you're just, once you get to overtime there, you just never know. Usually it's a game of mistakes. You're going to see 2-on-1s. You get on the wrong. A lot of times what happens, you get on a rush, you miss the net, and it's going the other way. Or like the U.S. game, you chip by a guy, and then you have an outnumber rush. I think, no, when you're going through the regular season, you're just trying to get as many points as you can. And then when it gets to overtime and shootout, I don't want to say it's luck, but it's if you have a bunch of skilled guys that can make plays, and you have to know how to manage those in overtime, but not really looking at it. Usually when you get to like 5-6 minutes left in the game, you're hoping you just, if you could score, great, but you're just managing the game to try to get points.
Well, why I'm here, Coach, this question's coming, right? Because this is the format, right? In the American Hockey League, you have the overtime, and then you have the shootout, and people they have their thoughts on the shootout, but it's part of the format. Is it just dumb luck that the Amerks have yet to connect here in the shootout this year?
I don't know about luck. I think there's a lot that goes into shooters, shooting on the goal. Like we have, like Rosie's usually really good. He's 1 for 14 in his career. I think Helly's 1 for 8. I think we just have struggled in the shootout to score. Yes, we do have, quite a few guys that would be in the shootout that aren't here right now, and that happens. But when you get to shootout, it's just one-on-one with the goalie. You hope you could find ways to score. I think we could do a better job of our shot selection, where you're coming in from, the speed you're coming in from, what the goalie's hand is. But a lot of times is you just, Rosie's he's got 25 goals. He's struggled in the shootout for whatever reason. So those things happen. It's just that's how it goes sometimes.
Yeah, Michael Leone, Amerks in Cleveland tomorrow night. And news from today, Antoine Wahlberg going up. He'll be on the Sabres 3-game road trip here. Coach, did you get to deliver the news to him personally?
I did. I think Wally was, I think it's great for Wally. I think Wally's earned it. I think out of all our young guys, Wally was playing the best right now. And it's a great example. It's not about points, how many points you get, how many goals you score, how many highlights you're in. Wally was playing the best hockey. I think Wally has a huge impact on the game, what he's done for our group, especially with Helly being up. Dunner's been up pretty much all year. Osty's been up. We had to find someone to play center, and Wally's done a great job to get us where we're at. He's a really good 200-foot player. He's buying into the role. I think he's really buying into it's not about points. At a guy like his size, he has the ability to impact the game, and I was really happy for him because, Wally probably doesn't get talked about enough. In my opinion, we talk about Helly, Rosie, and all these guys, and Wally's going to play a long time. And, he's sometimes with players that size, it takes a little longer to develop, but Wally's done a great job. And I think out of all of our forwards, Wally is, in my opinion, has come the longest way is his development path to ultimately get to the NHL. And it was, he was really emotional, but in a good way, and he's earned it. He's only 20 years old. I was telling him, you look at a guy like his size of how he's going to have to play in the NHL. And Nick Paul's a really good example. He had 14 years his first year of professional hockey. His second year, he had 37. His fourth year, third year, he was around 40. And then he had a breakout season his fourth year. Now he's, on arguably the best team in the NHL and has a huge role. Everybody's path is different. And, Wally's done an incredible job for us. He's plus 15. He's close to 30 points. He plays a lot of winning hockey, and we wouldn't be where we're at right now without his contributions.
Yeah, you just led to my next question because that plus 15 actually leads the Amerks. It's a great number. Some people say that's not the be-all, end-all. I'm just in general here, Coach, in terms of metrics, where do you put plus minus?
For me, it's difficult. Like if I was going to do plus minus, I would take out all the ones that are 6-on-5. Like I think those are dumb. I just think it's like those are tough. You have 6-on-5. A lot of times, what is it? It's like 15% you're going to score 6-on-5, so you need a minus for that. I do think it's a good indicator. Sometimes I would have it just 5-on-5, not 6-on-5. I would say power play, penalty kill. 2, I would have those because if you have a power play, you should get a minus if you give up. But I think it's a good. I don't think it's the be all end all because sometimes you get on the ice, someone changes bad for you, you get a minus. But I think it is a good indicator of what you're doing 5-on-5. And I think Wally's plays every late game situation. We got him on the kill now. I think he's done a fantastic job of playing to his identity. I think sometimes what gets lost is, he's a second round pick, so everybody looks at his points of, I look at it as like, what if he had 40 points and he was minus 25, would we celebrate that because he has 40 points, or where he's at right now with 25, 26 points. He's plus 15, playing in a checking role, and what he's going to have to play in the NHL. And I think it was a little bit his first year we struggled because we were a lot deeper up front, and he found a way to carve out a role. And this year, given the circumstance, he's put himself in a position where I trust him in all situations, whether it's offensive zone, defensive zone. He's a really good defender, and that's what he's going to have to be at the next level. There's not many, 6'4" guys that could play physical and play the right way. And ultimately, I look at Wally as a winning hockey player, and he translates to help teams win. And I'm really proud of him. Out of my 2 years here, Wally's, if not, come the longest way in his development. So I'm really, really happy for him.
The Monsters are the opponent tomorrow night. You are headed to Cleveland, and this is a team that right now ahead of you in the standings. Still a long way to go here, Coach. So set us up here for tomorrow night. What does your team have to do in order to get the 2 points here?
Cleveland's a really, really good team. I mean, they were good at the start of the season when the two guys they got back in their lineup are Gauntz, who's played 400 games in the NHL, and Aston Reese, who's played close to 400 games in the NHL, and both of them are exceptional AHL players. They're really deep. They're really good defensively. They're just a really good team. I think they're one of the best teams in our division. I would put them up against Laval. They've gone to a lot of overtime games. We actually have more regulation wins than them. I think they've been to League 19 overtime games, and they've won a lot of those games. They're good in overtime. They're good in the shootout. It should be a really tight checking game. I think all the games going forward are going to be that way, so it'll be another really good test for our group.
And then Laval, again, this is a weird stretch. 4 times in 6 days you're going to face this Rocket team. But my question is about, kind of the promotion here coming up Friday, where it was kind of a celebration of the history of the Rochester Americans last Friday night. This is going to be a different celebration here. Tomorrow in studio, we're going to have Jody Gage with us talking about Scott Metcalf. And I don't know if you ever got to meet Metter here, Coach, but what does it say that, our fan base here in Rochester, we're connected to stars like Jody Gage and Scott Metcalf and everybody else. And let me tell you something, Coach. If you ever join that club here, you will never have to buy another beer in this town ever again.
Yeah, no, I'm sober, so I don't have to worry about that. But no, it's an amazing. Like I said, it's an amazing town. It's amazing hockey community, the history, even going back to the jersey retirement we had 2 weeks ago when Marty came in and Donnie talked about the players here. It's incredible, and they're very passionate about the history of Rochester and the people that are still involved, and it's amazing to see, and hopefully we get a really good crowd that night.
Tonight, I don't know, you're probably your schedule won't allow it, but I know you're a Pistons fan. The Knicks are playing in that arena tonight in Cleveland.
I know that messes up our food schedule.
Really? How so?
Yeah, well, we usually go somewhere to eat, but now that the game's going on, it gets.
Yeah.
Me and Vinny Prosper, we don't like seeing a lot of people around, so we usually like to get in and out, and me, Pacer, and Vinny are just like to get in and out, and then back to our rooms as quick as we can.
Yeah, that's or maybe you just get an Uber and you go away from the town, and maybe somebody can help Coach with some good places in Ohio. Appreciate the flexibility today, Coach. We'll be listening to the call tomorrow. Thanks so much, and good luck, and we'll see you Friday night.
Sounds good. See you guys.
Thanks. That's Mike Leone, head coach of the Rochester Americans. Yeah, the Knicks playing in Cleveland tonight, where I remember Seth Apper. This is always kind of it might have been a Tuesday. The Amerks were in Cleveland, and we asked him, hey, there's stuff to do here. You're here a day early. Do you do the stuff, And he's like, no. No, this is basically saying, no, this isn't youth hockey. Team bonding sort of activities kind of happen on their own. I don't need to be planning a trip there to the Christmas, story movie house there, or whatever it is.
Yeah, you'll put your eye out.
Yeah, the museum or whatever it is. We will take a quick break, and then last call is for you. Our phone number, 866-4326 on X. You can write to us. WGR will set you up for the show a little bit tomorrow as well. Beautiful wintry afternoon here in the Flower City. My name is Gene Battaglia on the all-new WGR Rochester.
Rochester.
Hi, stepping right to the end of the show here. Welcome back in. Gene Battaglia with you as we have time for your calls. Last call. Get the imagery, sports bar, last call. Be more better, like, right, if we were flicking the lights at, 1 a.m. or, whenever bars close down here in the Flower City. 866-4326 is our number to call. Thanks to Mike Leone. Today flew right by because we're all kind of taking in the reaction from Indianapolis, from Brandon Beane, also from Joe Brady. Joe Brady, it was more from Beane giving you the info here today. Brandon Beane confirming, hey, they reworked the deal for Spencer Brown. Fantastic. Let's give yourself a chance here to be a player here coming up in the first part of March in terms of free agency and trades and making moves. So that will save the Bills $10.4 million against the cap this year. Hey, look, 3-4 years from now, I honestly, the Bills get to where they need it. We'll have that conversation then. So just rack up the credit card, if you will, on the Buffalo Bills. Also, talking about Keon Coleman, just saying, hey, he's going to have an excellent offseason, in his words, which at least they're putting it out there that there is a path for Keon to kind of come back. And I'll just say it, I'm pulling for him. But for a big booming personality like Keon Coleman, remember that introductory, press conference? He shows up talking about buying the coat and doing that sort of stuff, and then you never quite got that glimpse. And then we've heard the story that when Hard Knocks came around, the Bills have editorial control, and that was not one player that they wanted to showcase. And why was that? You would think a person with a big personality, maybe it was more like, we really, really need you to focus on football. A lot of mystery surrounding Keon Coleman, in my opinion. I think the talent's there. I think something good could happen if you put him on a team. I'm not saying he's going to be the next, to name a physical receiver in this league, A.J. Brown. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying, my gosh, can he be better than he's been the last 2 years? And then you couple that with, all right, what's the big ticket item you're going to get here, whether that's free agency or trade, in terms of wide receiver? What's the big draft pick, whether that's the first or second round? And that's the expectation, how this wide receiver room is going to be filled out with. It's just, Mad Libs, fill in the blank. Well, okay, here's going to be your big free agent signing. Alec Pierce, great. Some might say Mike Evans. Who is going to be the wide receiver that you will draft? KC Concepcion. Okay, we'll go with that. Maybe you go with Daryl Boston. And then all of a sudden, poof. Now Keon Coleman is competing to be the fourth wide receiver on this team with Josh Palmer. Palmer's not going anywhere, by the way, not with that contract. Yeah, things look a little better, don't they? Yeah, and also, try again in the draft. And also, I would see what's bargain basement-wise. What could you sign at wide receiver? 866-4FAN. Another story from today. And again, the Jets are, they're just a reminder that your life in the NFL as a Bills fan is not all that bad. It's very painful once a year in January when it comes around. But it always gives you that hope that we'll be back at, another bite at the apple. But then to hear just the tone deafness of head coach Aaron Glenn talking about his superpower. Your superpower being play calling? What? What are you talking about? Then to kind of learn this, that Breece Hall will either be, he'll be tagged, transition, whatever the tag may be. And if you're a Jet fan, you say, yeah, that's really good. And I would just say, is it? Pay the guy what he wants. Set the standard. You have the money. Unless it's way, way out there, I give him the money. And barring that, if you don't think it's a fit, well then let him test free agency and let him walk. Because that's what good teams do. The tag is a hostile move. To Brandon Beane's credit, it hasn't come into play. What? Way back when with Cordy Glenn? That was the last time the Bills actually used the the franchise tag. And you could say, well, has there been any player worthy of a franchise tag? That's fair. I'll listen to that. But I would say, well, you could have done that with James Cook, and the negotiation was a little tricky with James Cook, but in the end they got it done. And if we had to rank, okay, in terms of the value for the Bills' moves last offseason, number one on the list is Christian Benford. Christian Benford probably left money on the table. I feel bad for him. And if he said, hey, I want more money this offseason, I wouldn't. Not that I think that'll happen, but I think that he has outplayed his contract. Number two on the list is James Cook. And for how many times we talked about you can find running backs, dime a dozen, blah, 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 blah. For an offense that really was designed around Josh Allen, it should be. Like James Cook made big plays for this team. And James Cook will make big plays for this team next year as long as he's healthy. Then Shakir, I would put Rousseau kind of like on the negative side. And then Bernard hasn't been healthy. Wasn't that big a contract anyway. So when you look back at this time last year, my gosh, nobody thought that the Bills would wrap up all 5 of those deals. They did. They got them all done. But it's always kind of a buyer beware. Did we really think all 5 were going to meet or exceed expectation? In the case of Bernard, again, it's not fair if he's playing out there on one leg and kind of beat up, but that's also part of the story too. So, good conversation with Mike Leone. If you missed that, again, the Odyssey app, download it and you can listen. And we're working on getting everything in bite-sized form for you here because I understand the time change. If the sports board was part of your afternoon routine, well, then just get on board with the online listening. Odyssey app, and you could go back, and if you leave work at 4, if you leave work at 5, whenever it is, you can punch us up and listen to that. Tomorrow, we will have Amherst hockey against Cleveland. Not really promoting that, but promoting Friday night at home. The greatest Amherst of all time. Mr. Amherst himself coming into the studio, Jody Gage, talking about his former teammate as they will honor the life of Scott Metcalf coming up Friday night at Amherst, at the Amherst game against Laval. So in studio tomorrow with us, Jody Gage. Also a return appearance on the new show, the one, the only, PJ Glasser. And I think it's good to have PJ on the show. We'll talk a little college basketball. We'll kind of you don't have to be watching and breaking down everything as we kind of move to March. And in case you didn't notice, this is the last weekend before we get to March. We're going to be talking to PJ here as he is not only a betting expert, but somebody that certainly keeps his finger on the pulse of college basketball as well. Again, everybody today calling on the Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub Wingman line at 866-4FAN, award-winning barbecue from Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub, 135 West Commercial Street, East Rochester, goodsmokebbq.com. It's a good show, and there's a lot of things that we didn't get to. Just a final quick thought here. The eldest son of Phillip Rivers is going to college. Gunnar Phillips is going to play at NC State. That's his old man's alma mater. Gunnar Phillips ranked 12th as the best quarterback in his class. He's got one more year of high school remaining. And if that doesn't make you feel old, or maybe just kind of a reminder that Phillip Rivers maybe will have a whole starting offense of, how many kids does he have? 12? Well,
I think it's 9 times.
9. Should know the math there, especially when it comes to that number. For producer, terrible take Timmy. My name is Gene Battaglia. We'll do this all over again at 1 o'clock tomorrow. She'll open the wall next here on the WGR Rochester. Nope.
So much action, we couldn't fit it all in one app. Take WGR Rochester and the Sports Bar with Gene Battaglia with you everywhere in the